We have some fresh insight today into how Canadians view the United States, and it's worse than you might expect. Angus Reid surveyed more than 1,600 people. Only 21% said they hold a favorable view of the U.S. Under Donald Trump. That marks a new low. Meantime, 69% prefer that Canada approach the U.S. as a potential threat or with caution. And fewer than a quarter of respondents said they see our southern neighbor as a friend or ally. These numbers also have an impact on the federal political landscape. To bring it all together, we've reached polling analyst Éric Grenier in Ottawa. You can follow his analysis on the Writ.ca. Éric, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Good to be here.
Let's talk about the hardening of views towards the United States. What do you think is causing it?
Well, it's pretty clear what's been causing it, and it's Donald Trump and his attacks on Canada. We saw a spike in discontent with the United States and disapproval with President Trump early on last year. It was certainly a huge factor in the election campaign in April. And what is really fascinating about these numbers from the Angus Reid Institute is that we don't really see that opinion is softening the longer we get used to it. Just the fact that we see that 69% of Canadians say, or 67% I should say, that we should take a hard approach when it comes to our negotiations with the United States. That is really unchanged from where things were at the height of the disagreements between the Prime Minister and the President. So I do think that this is having a huge impact on Canadians' long-term views of the United States. I'm not so sure that this is a sign that this is going to be just a temporary thing that's going to go back to normal after Donald Trump is no longer the U.S. president. And it has had a huge impact, as you mentioned, on voting intentions, on views of the Prime Minister, and on the political climate here in Canada.
You know, I mean, the president first mused about Canada as the 51st state more than a year ago. Do you think we're seeing a long-term trend? And does it get impacted not just by what Trump has to say about Canada, but, for instance, the U.S. Trade Representative, Jamieson Greer, saying Canada just needs to accept that there will be a tariff. This is a free trade deal that he signed, in his first term.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the entire government apparatus that is taking its cue from Donald Trump. And I think it is having an impact on Canadian views of the United States. And it isn't just that relationship with the president, because as you mentioned, it is impacting our trade relation with the United States. So it's impacting Canadians' views of how much they can trust the United States to be a good trading partner in the future. We've seen polls suggesting that Canadians are much more supportive of increased spending on defense, which is, again, a response to the moves from the United States, the questions about the 51st state, but also, I don't know how else to say, but the shakedown we've heard that if we don't buy the jets from the United States, that we could get some repercussions. So I think this is all combining to have a real impact on Canadians' views of the United States. The numbers we've seen are the lowest they've been. And we've also seen from some other pollsters questions regarding whether Canadians believe that things will get better after there's a change in the White House. A lot of Canadians do think that things will get better, but they'll never get back to where they were. And so this has been a tough year for those U.S.-Canadian relations, but I would not be surprised if it ends up being a tough many years, and it could outlast Donald Trump.
Yeah, a lot of people feel as though the trust has been broken potentially for a very long time. Let's talk about the federal landscape now, because that Angus Reid poll suggested Canadians view Prime Minister Mark Carney favorably almost a year into his term. The president only mentioned Canada once last night in passing, and it was regarding the men's Olympic hockey team. If he talks less about his ambitions for Canada, his annexation threats, does it help or hurt one party more than the other?
I think that we've seen over the last year that the more that Donald Trump and the United States is in the news here in Canada, the better the polling numbers have been for the Liberals. Even when we're thinking about the last campaign in April 2025, the few weeks where Donald Trump receded to the background were the best weeks for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. We've seen in poll after poll that Canadians feel Mark Carney is the best person to handle that relationship. There's a polling by Abacus Data that found that among those who rank Donald Trump or the U.S. administration as one of their top issues, the Liberals have more than a 40-point lead over the Conservatives. On issues like cost of living and the economy, it's more or less neck and neck. But this is really the thing that differentiates the two parties. So the more that there is a focus on Donald Trump, the better things tend to be for Mark Carney and the Liberals. And we've been seeing that in a few polls lately, where the margin between the Liberals and the Conservatives has gone from a few points to now double digits in a lot of these surveys, including this latest one from the Angus Reid Institute.
Let's talk a little bit about that, Eric, because the difference is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Mark Carney's favorability was, between 20 and 30 points ahead of Pierre Poilievre as preferred prime minister. But there's a new trend in recent polls where we're seeing the Liberals doing much better than the Conservatives, right? Whereas before, the two parties were tied.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a lagging indicator. We had seen that Mark Carney was preferred over Pierre Poilievre as prime minister. We saw that his approval ratings, his positive ratings for Mark Carney were far better than Pierre Poilievre. And we weren't seeing the same sort of thing happening in the voting intentions, where even if we did see double-digit leads for Mark Carney over Pierre Poilievre, it was a very smaller lead for the Liberals over the Conservatives. But there does seem to have been a shift over the last few weeks, particularly after the speech in Davos, but I would say especially over the last couple of weeks, where not only have the Liberals been inching up, we've seen some polls now having them at around 45%, which is above what they had in the last election, but we've also seen the Conservatives start to slide. So now we're starting to see more and more polls that have them at 35 or lower. So it is having a big impact on voting intentions in Canada. And if there was an election today, I don't think there would be much of a doubt that the Liberals would get the majority they failed to get last year.
Eric, thank you. Éric Grenier of the Writ joining us live from Ottawa.